Good evening, and welcome to Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business, and tonight we will continue our dive into Reaper's Creek. Chapter 5. Face Down Children. Sitting at the breakfast table in shock. Why am I doing this now? What could have possibly happened? Another nightmare. I wasn't visited by the stick-fingered creature. I wasn't dropped into a world that threatened me. I looked outside my window. The river running by. I stared, completely losing myself to the effortless flow of water that would take countless men to move so quickly and smoothly without machinery. Maybe this observation is pointless, or maybe we all regularly fail to embrace the true nature of nature, the reality of our reality. We are all impossibly fragile, ready to be taken at any moment, just like they were taken in the "Morning, brat," my sister belted, interrupting my thoughts. "Hi, Joanna. How are you?" I said back sarcastically. "I'm fine, thanks, dweeb," she replied with skepticism. "I hope you have a lovely day, Joanna," I yelped, using an even more sarcastic tone. She replied, "Why are you being nice? Did you—" The door slammed. I was already on my way to school and didn't have the energy to teach my sister about how to pick up on obvious social cues. Philip was right back in class that day. He wasn't suspended. He didn't even get detention. I was surprised because, simply put, I had never in my life seen someone cause so much trouble without getting punished. I think they were leaving him alone because they had already suspended him and made no progress with his behavior. Moving classes clearly did not help either. Maybe at some point, people just accept that there is no fixing someone, so they tolerate them till they have a real excuse to be done with them for good. I don't want to go out to recess that day. Being around Philip on the playground, especially considering his parents had to pick him up directly from the office the day prior. I only imagined how they responded when they were at home. Away from teachers who were readier to call CPS on parents than to call their own families just to check up and say hi. We want to be heroes. And we want to see others fail to make ourselves feel better. But I had nothing but pity for Philip. He's a kid like me. His parents, even his DNA, the results of something less reliable than the coin toss or the roll of the dice. I heard a whimpering in the back of the room. It seemed while I was lost in thought, a boy had slipped through the front door. I asked, "What's the matter?" The boy responded, "The kids outside, they want to beat me up. They're looking for me." I replied, "Why are they wanting to beat you up?" Immediately, my hero complex was gaining momentum. The boy sniffed for a few seconds and said, "They think I'm weak. I'm smaller than them and they just want to be mad at someone." I looked at him silently. I felt lucky I wasn't below average in height. I heard a whimpering in the back of the room. It seemed while I was lost in thought, a boy had slipped through the door. I asked, "What's the matter?" The boy responded, "The kids outside want to beat me up. They're looking for me." I replied, "Why are they wanting to beat you up?" Immediately, my hero complex was gaining momentum. The boy sniffed for a few seconds and said, "They think I'm weak. I'm smaller than them and they just want to be mad at someone." I looked at him silently. I felt lucky I wasn't below average in height. In fact, I was above average. My mom also taught me how to flight, so I wouldn't be in this guy's position. But as I said, roll of the dice. He couldn't control himself winding up in this situation. But I can, because of DNA. Come on, I said to the boy. He looked up, confused. I lifted the baseball I got from the recess bin that I now had in my hand and asked, "Do you think those guys can play catch?" He looked up at me, almost excited by the idea of having the upper hand. "What's your name?" I asked. The boy had glasses, slicked back hair, and was a little heavy set. He could clearly stick up for himself if he wanted to, but even the smallest people can take him on if they have the biggest real fight in them. And this kid had near none. "My name is Aaron," he said. I grabbed his shirt, saying, "Let's go," and dragged him out the door. I headed to the massive field just outside class to confront the now groaning crowd of children, taunting the air with degrading references to my new friend, Aaron. I approached the group thinking Aaron was by my side. Do you have a problem with Aaron? I screamed. The group turned towards me. Philip stepped out front and said, "Yeah, did you see that, punk?" I realized the way Aaron had hid behind the fenced electrical boxes just as we left the class. Shaking my disappointment off, I replied, "Yes, and I'm here to let you know that I'm going to kick your teeth in if you mess with him anymore." Just then, I heard a scream of, "Yeah!" behind the electrical box. Philip, the gigantic pussy, perked up and screamed, "He's over there!" pointing in Aaron's direction. My hand cocked and ready to throw the baseball. "Make a move. Go ahead. Take one step towards Aaron." None of these people knew what a terrible throw I was. There was about a 1 in 3 chance I would actually be able to hit one of them if I tried. But our human sense of survival regularly demands most of us live in a fashion consumed by fear, regardless of the odds. Not even 3 seconds of silence passed before the bell rang. Immediately, everyone began walking in the classroom where Philip remained. Philip didn't care he would get in trouble for ignoring the bell. His eyes were locked on me, and I could see he wanted to hurt me. I dropped the baseball to my side and began walking in. I expected Philip to yell something threatening or offensive after me, but he was silent. I didn't want to look back as I walked into class. I felt a heat on the back of my head, as if his eyes were burning into my hair. In class, Philip was completely quiet for the whole second half of the day. I had never seen him like this before. Maybe I made a difference. Maybe the bullying would end. Or maybe I was being completely gullible and worse things were in store. David was on the bus, waiting for me before we headed home, which was strange because his stop wasn't on my bus route. I sat down next to him and asked, "So?" And he replied, "Who is this?" "Whatever." "What?" I sat down next to him and asked, "So?" And he replied, "I invited myself over. I hope that's okay." I replied, "Are you spending the night again?" He replied, saying he was just coming to my house because no one was home at his house. Someone would pick him up later in the day. At home, we did the typical boy things. He would hit on my sister. I would dry heave and we would play video games. After we got bored with games, I saw my bow and arrow set sitting in the corner of my room. "Hey, David, want to go shoot stuff?" At 11, I asked. His face lit up, and so we began scanning the outdoors for things to shoot, kill. "How about that bird in that tree?" he asked with a grin. I replied, "I don't want to shoot living stuff. That's psycho." David giggled and said, "Whatever." I walked off. I walked off, down a little hill, to the creek by our house. There were random dead fish that had swam up to lay their eggs, then die. I'm not sure why some fish work this way, but they do. By the time their babies are born, their parents are already long dead. Almost like their bodies were symbols, like gravestones, only marking a birth to soon happen, not just a death. Immediately, I began plunging arrows into random dead fish in the creek. David screamed with laughter as he came down the hill to see what I was doing. "Oh my God, shoot more, shoot more, shoot more," he hollered as he snorted. I had gotten about 7 arrows in the fish before I saw David's mom's SUV driving over our tiny creek bridge. I could see she was rightfully startled at the sight of arrows sticking straight up out of the large dead fish. David ran up the hill screaming, "Mom, did you see that? Ha!" As his mom came to a stop in our driveway. I was now alone by the water with a smile on my face. David ran back to me to say goodbye. "Hey, Daniel, see!" I turned to David to see nothing but horror in his eyes. The fish were not alone. Ugh. Chapter 6. Bodies in the creek. The body was old. There was a mold growing on the side of her face. David hadn't spoken to me in weeks. The police came. She was dragged out of our creek and placed in a body bag. Through all this, the alien nightmares continued regardless of the psychological stress I endured stumbling upon the dead body in my own backyard. They didn't know why there was a dead woman in a skimpy pink dress laying in our creek. They couldn't explain how she had gone for so long undiscovered. 2 children finding her body, she was one of 3 victims. David and I would live with this haunting our childhood forever. They were still looking for her left arm. It seemed it was chewed off by some animal in the woods upstream. I was required to go back to school after about 10 days. Half the school knew about what I had gone through, but that didn't change how the key people in my life treated me outside of David. I saw Aubrey was on the playground at recess today, so I approached her. I thought maybe she could help get my mind off the creek, help me escape the memories of the alien sticking his fingers in my neck and torturing me every other night. "Hi, Aubrey," I said, trying to smile. Aubrey replied, "Hi, Daniel," with a slight smile as well. She had learned a bit about me through her friend Amber. Amber was an observer who liked to learn things about people, most everyone she was around. I suppose it made her feel more secure, which I'm sure it has its own reasons and story. Dismissed. "I was wondering if you wanted to go with me sometime," I said. Aubrey replied, Go with you? Just then Amber walked up to Aubrey and said, "Hi, Daniel." I looked up and said hello back, only to connect eyes with Aubrey again. I mean, out on a date to like the mall, I said. Aubrey looked at her feet and said, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you, I think, because I'm 11. Amber jumped in saying, she have to ask her parents. And she gave me a big smile. In the corner of my eye, I could see a figure standing there, staring at me. It was Philip. Looking over, I could see he was angry. Clearly he didn't care about what I had gone through recently. He hated me just as much as before, and after my brief time away from school, obviously just wanted to continue where we had left off. The field, the ball in my hand, the threat I had made for the sake of defending someone else. The rest of recess, I decided to spend in the basketball courts, trying to jump off the wall and grab the hoop. A few other people and I were having fun doing it, and only I was able to actually grab on every other attempt, as I was the tallest as well as the best jumper. The bell rang and we were off to class. Before class started up again, my teacher approached me and whispered an apology about the half dinosaur, half human she had shown me on the first day of school. Apparently, I was not the only one who complained, and that gave me a sense of relief. The ride home from school was lonely. Joanna was off at some extended extracurricular activity, and of course David was still coping with being the first of us to see the body. Michelle didn't talk much as usual, so it was mostly just me alone with my thoughts. Not exactly where I wanted to be. When I got home, I looked for my papa, but he was nowhere to be found. As I looked for him, I heard booming laughter in the distance outside. The sound came from my neighbors, which happened to be my grandpa and grandma's house. So I walked down the gravel road to see who was so happy. As I got closer, I could see my papa talking to my Uncle Ben. I fucking can't. Of all the fucking names. As I got closer, I could see my papa talking to my Uncle Ben. He always got along with my mom's side of the family, maybe more so than my mom. They would ride motorcycles together, go fishing together, and shooting as well. "Hi, Papa," I said. My stepdad replied, "Hey, Daniel, come here," and ran up to hug me. I laughed, and after a brief glance at my Uncle Ben, just looked back to what he was working on in the shop they were in. After my papa hugged me, I mopped around the shop until I saw a flower. I bent over and picked up the flower, only to hear, "Well, that won't grow back for 7 years. It was my uncle, Uncle Ben. He was pointing out I had just ruined something rare. I didn't know how to react, so I just said sorry. My uncle just shrugged and went back to work. Now feeling stupid, I decided I would just walk home again and play video games in my room. My mom didn't make dinner that night. Joanna went straight to her room once she got home, and I was happier left alone, silently tapping away at my game controller, lost in the world of Final Fantasy VII. The next day at recess, I went to go check on Aubrey to see if she had asked her parents about going on a date at 11. When I approached Aubrey, she seemed happy to see me. But as I began to ask her, Philip approached me from behind. I would keep trying to ask Aubrey if she talked to her parents, but Philip kept interrupting with statements like, "You got a problem with me?" And, "What are you, a wuss? You got a problem?" I could see Aubrey was getting upset with Philip barging in our otherwise peaceful interactions. So I asked Aubrey calmly, "Would you like me to get rid of this guy?" She hesitated to respond, but I could see our lives would both be better without Philip. "Yeah, keep your back turned to me, you pathetic loser," Philip screamed at the back of my head as I faced Aubrey. Then I sighed and said to Aubrey, "This will just take a moment." Using everything my mom taught me about fighting, and the anger I felt for Philip, messing with the connection I felt for Aubrey, I began slinging my fists as fast as I could at Philip's face. I did so in a way that me even turning to him in the first place to begin punching him would just be a blurry memory to him. The only thing Philip knew to do was try and grab my shirt as I was still punching his face and pull me to the ground. As I fell to the ground, he made the mistake of not pushing me away from him, so I continued, from the sitting position, to rapidly punch him in the face as he was forced to bend forward, having not yet let go of my shirt. After a few punches from me on the ground, he fell over, releasing my shirt, and began screaming as he cried. One of the staff members assigned to watching kids on the playground was also screaming in horror, as she had caught the tail end of our fist fight. We were both taken to the principal's office, but at the time, I didn't even understand why I was in trouble at all. The entire way to the office, I was asking questions like, "Why am I in trouble? He was bullying me. I'm the victim here." While Philip just screamed, "Why am I in trouble? He was bullying me. I'm the victim here." While Philip just screamed, "He was punching me like a machine." Philip and I were placed in chairs next to each other in the office. I was in the same chair the other day I walked in after seeing the dinosaur-human hybrid months prior. Philip was sniffing and wiping, now drying tears from his face at this point next to me. He had a tissue the staff had given him to help deal with everything coming out of his nose and eyes. After waiting for our parents to show up for about 30 minutes, under his breath, Philip said, "You know, I could beat you up if you didn't jump me like that." I smiled and replied, "Okay, Philip." He continued, "You're still a wuss, you know." I smiled, "Sure." I smiled, "Sure, Philip." Philip awkwardly laughed and sniffed quite a few times more. That was the last interaction I'd ever have with him before he died 3 weeks later. Fucking wraps that up. Chapter 7. The Eyes of Death. The creek was becoming the monster of my backyard. I learned one day in school, weeks after Philip and I fist fought, that he was on his sled by the creek far upstream from me. And for some bizarre reason, thought it was appropriate to slide down a hill that ended in the icy water, which heavily flowed that time of year. David was the one who broke the news to me. It was a fact that served up as a silver lining on the ripped and burned pages in the book of my social life. David avoided me before as a result of death, and began talking to me again as a result of death. Neither of us could understand how Philip died, as no one would tell us about his death, beyond the fact that it was a sledding accident that ended in the creek. David and I discussed theories after our initial shock. Were there no other sled-worthy hills around? Did he have something blocking the creek so he wouldn't slide right out? Maybe that's what was blocking him from winding up in the creek had fallen over after he failed to stop on his own short of the homemade safety precaution. Maybe as a result of that, he found himself being taken away by the heavy ice-cold current. Maybe that current led him into a gathering of logs, and assuming he was not already drowned, he was sucked under the logs, causing him to rapidly seize, exiting the world as he knew it. My mother wanted me to stay home for a week once I told her the news. But more importantly, she also wanted me to stay away from the creek indefinitely. My papa didn't have so much to say about it, and my sister Joanna was so obsessed with the relationship she was in while all this happened that it was like no one died at all to her. Yeah, that's how it works. It was bedtime. I was still dealing with this news of Philip's death, and now I was expected to sleep. I thought I wouldn't be able to, but the hum and the warmth of the furnace behind my head, and the washer below rocking the chains my bed was attached to, I couldn't resist slipping right back into the black cold room I had dreamt of so many times before. The alien was waiting for me. I felt I had come to know him, almost as well as a human can know an alien they're being abducted by. Once the fear subsided, I started to notice the creature ticked his head to the side every so often. He would almost make a click sound when he did this, almost like a kid I saw in my school in the special ed group sitting across from me at lunch in the cafeteria a couple weeks back. I noticed that kid a few times prior at school, but he ticked consistently when trying to eat his homemade ham sandwich. The alien's breath smelled like a swamp and felt like it was coming from a window being opened up to a fresh snowy day. I could tell the alien blinked sometimes, but his eyelids were transparent. Despite the creature having no indication in its eyes alone as to where it was looking, I could tell, because when it wasn't reacting to a tick, it would tilt its head to the side slightly and often stare in an obvious manner in my direction. Almost like the alien was constantly lost in deep thoughts about me, or daydreaming with no thoughts at all. I'm not sure what the alien thought was so special about me. I don't understand what was worth studying night after night. But this would be me assuming the alien was even real. I don't understand how a creature like that could even bring me to it, considering how tiny my room was. How even more remarkably tiny my bedroom window was, and really the only thing that I could imagine was the alien would, beyond my comprehension, break down my physical body so I could somehow be transported through the very roof over my head. A roof with no attic, as it was flat and low quality at that. Come to think of it, in this dream, I could hear the rain outside hitting the thin roof few feet away from my ears. This meant I was still partially awake. Maybe I had more power than I knew. I thought to myself for a moment, then screamed at the alien, "Let me go! Now!" The alien looked at me. I was laying, paralyzed vertically in front of him. with seemingly nothing supporting my upright body. Especially not... Oh, what? Especially not my own muscles. The alien chattered to itself, as if it was laughing at me. I screamed again, "Let me go!" And immediately a metal clang sounded off in the distance, the black empty distance behind the creature. The alien looked back briefly, analyzing the sound behind it, then turned to me and immediately began charging me. I screamed one last time, "No more!" as I glared directly into its glossy, dark eyes. The alien jolted its head back and emitted a vibration from its entire body as what appeared to be fluid ejected from one of its eyes. Immediately my body shot backwards, making the alien look like just a speck in seconds. Now frozen in complete blackness, I stood there like a puppet being controlled by an unseen master. Suddenly, a sinking feeling overwhelmed my body, and stars appeared all around me. I began to realize the alien could tell I was waking up, not in the dream, but in reality. The alien charged at me because it had to rapidly inject me again, so I would not see where I was, how far I was from home. The entire earth sat thousands of miles beneath my feet. As I gazed down upon it, the entire planet grew larger as I began to understand I was indeed not in my physical body at any point in that black room. It was my soul the entire time, and my soul was returning home. The perfectly square roof of my house was just a dot within a massive green wilderness surrounding my entire neighborhood. I could see the racetrack. I could see the railroad. I could see the creek. Everything appeared as I imagined it would be, only the creek had red marks distributed seemingly randomly up and down it. They glowed like a cat's eyes glow when shine a flashlight on them in the night. I didn't understand what these marks on the creek were, but I was already assuming what they could be. I blinked as I fell a few 100 feet more and then opened my eyes. I saw myself laying there. As I hovered above my body, I began to wonder how I could possibly return. "Do I just lay inside myself?" I mumbled aloud. Somehow sensing me, my body twitched, and then opened its eyes. "Do I just lay inside myself?" My body had repeated the words exactly. I turned around and tried to lay down, but nothing happened. A clock radio reading 0400 near my bed was making a static noise, so I moved over to try to turn it off. My right hand slid past the off switch, and I could feel the electricity entering whatever I was. I jumped back, landing in the middle of my body in response to the electricity, and felt my physical self jolt up, smacking my head against the ceiling that it was so incredibly close to the bed, anchored above the washer and dryer. "Ow, damn it!" I screamed. The furnace was still blaring. No one would have any idea what was going on in my room. There was no way I was going back to sleep, so I slid down the ladder to my bed, put on a cartoon-covered bathrobe, and immediately walked to the massive windows in my front room to look for at least one of the marks I saw in the creek while I was falling in the middle of the night. I wish I could tell you I saw nothing, because I would rather all this have simply a twisted and life-haunting dream. I don't even want to talk about this right now. That was chapter 5, 6, and 7 of Reaper's Creek. And I have nothing to say about this book. I got nothing to say. We have to finish it because we said we would. And after that, I will read something fantastic. But this has been Doctorpiece Theater. And my name is Dr. Dennis Business. And as always, my patient friends,